not going to start yet. They'll be able to see you and hear you.
Oh, okay.
Hey, everyone. If you're here already, I'm still setting up. Almost got this done. I always do this ahead of time. I don't know what happened. But almost every single time, like, I'm late to the show because something goes wrong. But we'll just give it a few minutes for people to show up.
Did it work?
Yeah, I think I've got it. Live chat replay. So yeah, I think it's good for now. Hey guys, we do have people here. Hey, hey Maribel, hey Jennifer, hey Olga. So today I've got a guest with us. This is my friend Miguel. Esteban. Sorry.
I look like a Miguel.
Well, I don't know. The other day I called you what?
Yeah, you keep changing my name.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So how's everyone today? Looks like we've got 11 people here. Where's everybody watching from? So Maribel is from New York. Carrie B says, "Hey Esteban, let me see how to figure out how do I think there's a way to show the chat in the here it is. Can you see the chat now?
No.
Should be in the left corner.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're popping up now.
Yeah. So everyone, I just wanted to show you guys something. You see this image on the screen here. I finally decided to try to publish something and see what happens. So this is a kid's book. It's like a ghost story compilation book. It should be pretty interesting if you're like 10 years old or so. So, Esteban, tell me about yourself.
Well, I live in Alaska now, but I'm originally from Texas. Um, 37 years old. Came up here, ended up in Alaska. Uh, you know, through the military. Got stationed up here, got out, and stayed up here in Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska is pretty nice, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful.
I moved here in 2019, and I don't know. I can't imagine going somewhere else because it's so much hotter everywhere else.
Yes, it is.
I-
Yeah.
like
No, I got here
today,
in
it's like
2013, so I've been here a little bit. So yeah,
so. Did you see that that TED talk that I sent you?
yeah, yeah, I did.
Feigned concern
This guy.
and
Everybody
August
knows who this
2018.
is, right? Does anybody not know who this is? All right, so I'm going to play this, and you know, there's been some talk about some new evidence that's not really. I would say it's not actually new, but it is there. It does bring up a good question. You know, I hadn't really thought about it, but they had talked about the text messages and stuff, and you know, Nichol Kessinger deleted her phone, and all of that. But it never like occurred to me that they didn't bother checking like Facebook, even though Shanann had like she was live streaming on Facebook all the time. Um, Even myself, I don't even use my text messages that much. You know, it's probably mostly Facebook and WhatsApp. You know, um, but I'm going to play kind of a bunch of stuff here with DA Rourke. You know, at this part right here, he's talking about Chris Watts specifically, and this was I think from back in 2023. I cut out most of it and just kind of kept the relevant stuff. This is a good talk. If you want to watch the whole thing, I can probably get the link for you. But the whole point of this TED talk was vicarious trauma and how it affects people who don't, you know, necessarily, you know, go through this trauma specifically, but they hear about it secondhand, either through, you know, news or photos. But it still affects people, and it is a real thing. But I think he's got some pretty interesting things to say about Chris Watts here in the beginning of this.
August 2018, Frederick, Colorado. A man whose name will not come out of my mouth stood before the television cameras, feigned concern, and lied to the public, claiming he needed the information about the whereabouts of his missing wife and 2 young daughters. But something was off. And within just a matter of a couple of days, we learned that this was a calculated charade by a monster who had annihilated his family, murdered his wife, his 4-year-old daughter, and his 3-year-old daughter. He buried his wife and their unborn son in a shallow grave outside of an oil tank battery. He smothered his daughters with his own hands and shoved them into those oil tanks through an 8-inch diameter hatch at the top of those tanks. Not the same tank, different tanks, thereby ensuring that they would be alone in death. Once again, my partners and I readied ourselves to enter into that courtroom to be the voice for the innocent, to be the voice for that young pregnant mother and her 2 daughters. We were going to get justice for her killer. At the time, as the district attorney, I had a team of lawyers and investigators working for me, and I let them take the lead early in this investigation. And for my own mental health, I refused to look at the crime scene evidence. But at the time, Colorado still had the death penalty. And I knew that if we were going to consider seeking the ultimate punishment, I had to see for myself what he had done. So one night that fall, sitting on my couch next to my wife, I opened my laptop to look at the photos which documented the recovery of those little girls' bodies from those oil tanks by hazardous materials crews. What I saw were 2 little blonde girls' lifeless bodies covered in oil.
So this part right here, what he talks about really kind of gets to me. You got kids too, right?
Yeah,
Esteban?
yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I know for me, whenever I talk about this case, like a lot of the time, you know, I can kind of detach from it. But as soon as I start imagining what happened to those kids, I can't help but think about my own kids. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I hopefully won't get weepy, but it has happened from this case. I saw a comment a second ago that somebody, DJ Darkside, asked how did he fit his wife uh, into the oil tank. Well, he actually buried her uh, in a shallow grave fairly close to the oil tanks. But right now, DA Rourke is going to talk about his child, and it's kind of, it always, every time I've heard it at least 3 or 4 times in the last couple of days, and every single time it kind of gets to me. So I'm just kind of giving you guys a warning here ahead of time, but I'll go ahead and play it through.
I mentioned their hair color for this simple reason. I too had a 3.5-year-old daughter with long blonde hair. And as I looked at those photos, I looked up at my daughter singing and dancing in my living room, and something happened. I was lightheaded. I got tunnel vision. I felt like I was going to faint, and I felt like I was going to throw up. My wife watched as a very dark shadow cast over my face, and it had finally happened. All of the evil, all of the pain, all of the trauma that I had seen finally spilled over. That was the moment I realized this job had changed me forever. Where I live in Weld County, Colorado, we have a robust oil and gas industry. And you can't hardly drive down a rural county road without seeing a cluster of oil tanks. And to this day, every time I drive by one of those tanks, I see those little girls, and I see my daughter. My mind goes back to that very dark place that I found myself in the fall of 2018, and I am filled with rage.
See, right now, what he's talking about is secondary trauma. This is basically a form of PTSD. So now when he sees these oil tanks, it triggers something in him. And, um, it's a hard image to kind of get out of your mind when he describes the 8-inch hole that at the top of the tanks. That's like, probably like that, maybe a little bigger than that, like
Yeah.
barely big enough to fit their heads in there. It's just sickening. What do you guys think about how he separated them? Do you think it was just so that he thought maybe he would clog up the tank somehow and they would find it if there was 2 in there? Or do you think like what he's about to suggest is that he separated them even after death so they couldn't be together? I don't think Chris Watts thought that. I think it was more along the lines of, well, how do I not get caught? And if there's something in the tank, they're going to get the oil out at some point and there's going to be a clog, What do you
I
think?
don't think he had time to really think about it. I think he did it and he was just going with it throughout, the morning, trying to get rid of stuff. So, but yeah, that is kind of crazy that, hey, I mean, you still do what you did and then you still try to shove them, in the oil tanks. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a couple rumors that he was actually planning on blowing up this oil site. I don't think it's true. I think it's a rumor. Um, but I've heard 100 times where they talk about why do you got to separate all of them? Why can't they be
Mhm.
together? But I
And I
think,
also think what um Jennifer says, the best friend, I think, threw him off super quick because he didn't really have any time. The friend right away knew something was wrong. I don't think, him knowing that she had a doctor's appointment that day was going to come up. So I don't even think he planned it or he knew what to do next. And then the friend kind of threw everything off for him because it was within a matter of hours when after she called and tried looking for her. So everything was just going super fast for him that he didn't even have time to think of what's next.
Yeah, I have thought that too. Like if he would have had another day,
Yeah,
even one more day to like put this stuff in his head, he would have probably thought about the car and the phone and the purse and all of
yeah.
that stuff. I'm glad that he got caught, you know.
Hmm.
It would have been horrible if he'd have gotten away with it. At least
Yeah.
even for like a little while, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm gonna play some more of this. There is a lot of footage here. The next part is I actually edited out. Well, I basically fixed the audio so you can kind of hear the reporters asking questions after Chris confesses. They do a press conference, and that'll be coming up here in a sec.
For what those little girls endured, for what all those victims endured. Vicarious trauma is real. From the Frederick Police Department.
So
I
this
first
is
want to
the
invite
press
him up to say a
conference
few words,
after
and
Chris
then
Watts
I'll
confessed.
comment about this morning. Sergeant Albert.
Good afternoon, and thank you. On behalf of the men and women of the Frederick Police Department, I would like to thank our fellow law enforcement agencies, the countless citizens, and all those who contributed to this tireless investigation. It was a combined effort in serving justice today. In the names of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. Today I am proud of the determination that was put forth by all those who worked with us on putting this man away. His deplorable actions were fought back vigorously by honest police work, coupled with the goodwill of caring and loving people. I don't know if you will ever receive closure on this horrific act of evil. I just pray that our efforts have brought you all one step closer in doing so. Thank you.
As you all, I'm sure, are aware, the defendant in this case this morning was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, plus a 48-year sentence for the unlawful termination of a pregnancy as it relates to Nico Watts. He was also sentenced to 12 years on each of the 3 Class 3 felonies for unlawful tampering with a deceased body, those being Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. All of those counts ran consecutively for a total of 3 consecutive life sentences plus 84 years in the Department of Corrections. This afternoon, with the cooperation of the Weld County Coroner, the autopsy reports will be available and become a public document. There are a few things that I want to talk about that you will see that are contained within those autopsy reports. I'm going to be very general at this point. I hope you understand, out of respect for the Rusick family who is still present. Part of the reason that we kept these sealed were for the following reasons. You will see in the autopsy report of Shanann Watts that forensic toxicology testing indicated that in spleen blood there was a blood alcohol level of 0.128. I want to be abundantly and very, very clear about this. This does not mean that she consumed alcohol, nor that she was intoxicated. We have consulted with the Weld County Coroner's Office. We have conducted with the forensic experts at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. To a person, they have all indicated to us that that blood alcohol level is very, very consistent with normal human decomposition based upon the location and the manner that Shanann and Nico's bodies were buried.
I've actually talked about this before, and I hadn't remembered that he actually said that. But one of the first things I noticed in that autopsy report was the alcohol levels.
Hmm.
And, the first thing I did was Google it, and Google says, hey, well, it's probably likely from decomposition. And, because I always wondered how she actually died. How did Chris Watts kill her without her fighting back? You know, um, I don't know if you knew that the body produces ethanol when it's decomposing, but I sure didn't.
I didn't. Not until I saw this video. I was like, man, that's crazy.
But there's been a lot of speculation on like, whether or not he had drugged her, whether or not he used like, heavy, heavy duty like pain meds or something and alcohol. But they at least believe that she didn't consume alcohol and she didn't have any drugs in their system. The children did have some different things in their system, but they said that it's most likely from the crude oil that they were submerged
Yeah.
in.
Secondly, you will see in the autopsy reports of Bella and Celeste a number of different substances, I think is probably the way, Mr. Blesh, that I want to address those. We have had those examined by both expert chemists as well as the coroner's office, because we wanted to make sure that all of those substances could be attributed to the crude oil and the water that their bodies were found in, and nothing more. The forensic experts confirmed for us that all of the substances found in those toxicology reports are consistent with being submerged in unrefined crude oil. Mr. Blesh, any other comments you want to make about that at this point?
Covered it well, sir.
Thank you. The defendant is now headed exactly where he belongs, which is a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole. So I'm happy to take questions.
Can you shed some light on when 2 little girls were killed?
I'll certainly call upon Mr. Blesh. Also, what I can tell you is that because of a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is we're not operating.
So the audio sounds weird there because I increased the volume because you can't hear the reporters very good. And some of them towards the end, like there's some on the left side that you can't ever really hear very well. And the ones on the right, you kind of can hear. But I tried to lift the volume up so we can actually hear what the question was as well. I just wanted to point that out.
In the CSI TV world, oftentimes we can't determine exactly when or a time frame for cause or time of death. Particularly, I think that was complicated by where all of the different bodies were found and the amount of time that passed before their remains were recovered.
I agree.
So how much time?
Well, we know that they were deposited in the locations where they were found in the early morning hours of August 13th. They were recovered on August 16th. That's the best I can tell you from a timing.
The girlfriend you referenced in court, can you give us a better idea of her role in the investigation, how forthcoming she was, and how she helped?
She originally came forward.
So you guys should listen up to this part. This is basically what he says about Nichol Kessinger. And I think this is all he's ever said about her, really. And I don't know that it's enough.
And spoke to investigators on her own volition. Prior to the time, unfortunately, that she came in and spoke with investigators, she had deleted all of the information off of her phone that had any connection between her and Chris Watts. That hampered the investigation. That hampered our ability to get that electronic digital connection between the two. She was interviewed on multiple occasions. I believe that for the most part she was forthcoming in the course of those investigations. We don't have any reason to believe that she had any prior knowledge or involvement in the death of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I think that's the best way I can answer that. Yes, sir.
You said that you were leaving the door open for Chris Watts to make a statement in the future and hopefully answer questions. What information is it that you were specifically looking for?
How and why? And I don't think he'll ever answer those questions. Like I said in the courtroom this morning, and I think that the Rusick family said it very, very well as well, I don't think he will ever tell us. I don't think he will give an honest assessment of why he did what he did, how he did what he did. I intentionally called upon him to see if he would answer those questions in the courtroom this morning. Both his mother and through their attorney, his father, said that they hope that he will be honest and come clean someday and give us an account of what happened, because I think, like I said this morning, those are the questions that will always haunt anyone who was involved in the investigation, and I don't think that there is ever going to be a satisfactory answer for anyone, not the least of which is the Rusick family.
You mentioned several times in court that this was a deliberate act. Why do you believe it's a deliberate act? Do you believe he planned this before the night of to kill his family?
I don't have any information about any pre-planning or anything like that. Obviously, something like this in my mind doesn't just happen on the spur of the moment. But what I alluded to this morning, as it related specifically to Shanann, was the amount of time it takes for one human being to strangle another. And perhaps Mr. Blesh wants to comment on the timing as well. That demonstrates an incredible intent to cause someone's death. He did that 3 times. So to say that this was anything other than a deliberate, intentional killing is inaccurate, to say the least.
You know, I think it's important that he brings this up, how difficult it is to strangle someone. You know, I've only seen it happen in movies, and it's always like, you know, and they're dead, you know, or it's like drawn out kind of thing. trying to be realistic. I have heard that, one of the kids may have actually came back to life at least once. And well, Esteban, Israel Keys, right? He
Yeah.
actually talked about how hard it is to strangle somebody.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And I mean, it just looks like maybe he got lucky with Shanann. She was been on a plane all day. She was tired,
Tired. Yeah.
and he just like got her while she was sleeping. She had no time to react.
Mm-hmm.
That is just terrifying to me. There was a question: is it feasible that, because CW had been convicted, that they didn't want to pursue Nichol Kessinger? Well, there's a lot of speculation on this right now, why they didn't prosecute or follow, any more of the evidence than they did. I personally still believe that she may not have went into some kind of protection program, but she probably did give them some information that allowed them to, take her off the list, because it's the only real option to me that makes any sense. What do you think, Esteban?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I was seeing another comment about Nicole giving them information, but I've never seen or heard any information that she actually gave them in the case. It was just that interview, which was, it left more questions than answers. So I think they could have gone into her a little bit more than what they did. And they probably could have found some stuff, but yeah.
I know that I've heard that prosecutors can actually, if they get somebody who's given them information, they can take that out of the public record, so
Hmm.
that, whoever they're like going to testify against doesn't ever get it because it's public record, and then use that as a reason to,
Hmm.
take them out or something,
Yeah.
So it is possible that she said something and it's just not in the public record. We don't really know.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the timing, the way, like they had already found the bodies, and before Chris confessed, and it was during the same time that Nichol Kessinger was talking to the police. I mean, it is also logical that they, do exactly what he's about to say. Oh, we went out there, we followed his GPS, and, I don't know how they would have thought to look in the oil tanks.
Yeah.
That's a lot of oil in there, and, I don't know how they check, like, with a big stick, you just swirl it around until you
Yeah.
find something. I mean, it doesn't seem likely that they would have known that. So I think maybe he had said something to her and she told them, well, he was talking about it, so blah, blah, blah. Here's all the information. I just don't want to be a part of this. And then so they just gave her a get out of jail free card. I don't know. It's all speculation.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You described Mrs. Watts as, it took a long time for her to die. Was there any defensive wounds on Mr. Watts? And can you have any evidence if she was asleep? Or-
He had one small mark on his neck that was observed the night he was originally interviewed. We don't know if that's related or not. But other than that, no. We had him photographed from head to toe that night, and nothing was observed that would be consistent with injuries to him as a result of a struggle.
Yeah, go ahead.
The original plea deal isn't the one you reached today, correct? And can you elaborate on what that would have been?
To be clear, there was only ever one plea deal, and that's the one that his attorneys brought to us. The deal, for lack of a better word, and I frankly despise that word, no offense, the agreement that was reached was he would plead guilty to every count we charged him with. In exchange, if he pled guilty to each and every count in the complaint information, we would not seek the death penalty. That was an offer brought to us by the defense. That's when I've talked about this before. Mr. Wren and I felt compelled to get on a plane and go see the Rusicks in North Carolina because that was a conversation that I was only going to have with them face to face. Go ahead, Carol.
So this was something that I didn't realize. I thought this was something that they'd offered Chris Watts, you know, but he says right there, no, the defense asked us for this plea deal and they accepted it.
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw that too. I was like, oh, I did not know that. Like, they
Because it makes me
reached out to
wonder
them.
if they thought, oh, well, we'll accept it because we don't got enough information to
Yeah.
prove it.
Yeah.
I just assumed that they had a lot of information and they were like, well, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to get the death penalty. We'll take that off the table. We're going to find out anyway. Do you want to take the deal? And Chris accepted, but that's not actually what happened.
Oh. Yeah, I was surprised when I read that too. When I saw that, I was like, oh, they
And this is
reached out to
straight
them.
from his mouth. So this
Yeah.
isn't speculation.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lauren, I'm glad you were able to make it.
Now that we know they were smothered, did that ever come into play? DNA on their necks?
No, it didn't. Yeah. Sorry, I meant,
yeah.
yeah, we'll go back
I
to that
couldn't
first.
hear that question very well. You know, whenever I was listening to it yesterday when I was editing it, I could hear the questions. I should have wrote them all down, but I didn't. Sorry, guys.
There's a letter that's circulating around in social media that apparently Chris sent his family a week prior to the murders, where he's saying if anything happens to
Hey, thank you, LK. I really appreciate it.
me or the girls, I would have never hurt my daughters. Is there anything to that? Is that legitimate? And it seems to me it shows that he was planning this at least a week ahead of time.
You're seeing a lot of puzzled looks up here because none of us have ever heard that. I've never seen that on social media. I confirmed just by the look on his face with Detective Baumover, we have never seen.
So I think I'm going to try to see if I can listen to this question again. Did you hear what he asked, Esteban?
No, I couldn't hear it either.
Here, I'm going to try to get what the question is, because this is actually pretty interesting, because it's what he says is just, you know, a rumor. But let me see if I could try to hear this. I'm going to mute my mic for a sec and turn up the volume.
His family a week prior to the murders, where he
Sorry, I meant, yeah, we'll go back behind it first.
there's a letter that's circulating around in social media that apparently Chris sent his family.
She says there's a letter circulating on social media that Chris sent to his family.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever heard that too.
Where he's saying if anything happens to me or the girls, I
Yeah, this is actually, if you guys can hear this, it's really interesting thing. And I'm glad they addressed it.
his family a week prior to the murders, where he's saying if anything happens to me or the girls, I would have never hurt my daughters. Is there anything to that? Is that legitimate? And it seems to me it shows that he was planning this at least a week ahead of time.
You're seeing a lot of puzzled looks up here because none.
Did you guys hear what she said? Basically, she said that there's a letter supposedly circulating on social media, that it's a letter from Chris to his parents saying that if anything happens to the girls, I had nothing to do with it. And I'll just let you hear what he has to say about it, and what he has to say about rumors in general.
None of us have ever heard that. I've never seen that on social media. I confirmed just by the look on his face with Detective Baumover, we have never seen and nor heard of any such letter or its existence before. I'm sure that if it was in any way, shape, or form real, we would have heard about it. Go ahead.
When you were describing some of those very gruesome and horrific details, the judge himself even seemed to be a little bit emotional about that.
Right.
Can you talk to us about what that's like for you standing there and seeing him have that kind of reaction?
It's not something that I relished. Mr. Wren and I and Mr. Miller, the assistant DA.
So do you guys want to talk about that letter for a second before we go too much further? It looks like Olga said that Cindy had that letter. I've never seen this letter, but I do agree with Rourke here that if it had been something real, the detective right there, the guy standing next to him, would have addressed it.
Would have addressed it or had, his hands on it or something. But yeah, that was the first time I've ever heard about a letter also. So
This came out after, he had like confessed to his parents that Shanann killed his kids and he killed Shanann. And so it seems more like a rumor based off of that scenario. It kind of aligns with that. But Maribel also says this letter was in discovery. Has anybody
yeah.
got it? Like, can share it with me? I'd like to see it. Okay, says the investigation and conviction just happened too fast. Tammy Lee wanted to look more at the evidence and had a feeling that something was off.
Yes, I agree with LK. I totally agree with that.
This was what, like 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, everything
he
happens so
confessed.
fast.
Like this never happens. It was almost like Chris Watts had never seen a movie. You're never supposed to talk to anybody without an attorney. Like
Yeah.
that's in every movie, every TV show. Every civilian on the planet should know that. I don't know why he did. I mean, I guess, I know a lot of people say he has no remorse, that he didn't feel guilty, but maybe it was guilt that he was feeling, and so he just felt like he had to, get it out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think he had remorse?
No. I don't think he did. I think everything happened so fast, and he got caught up in it, and he had no other way out. So it's like everything just played out as it did, and he just went with it.
Yeah, I believe that he only felt sad because his life was over and he knew it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, every time I think about did he have remorse, I think about how much effort he put into talking to news reporters about this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want my family back. He made phone calls to Sandy like multiple times saying, oh, I just want them back. It doesn't make any sense to me. But he knew what had happened to them.
Yeah.
He knew they were not coming back.
Yeah, and it's crazy. He went on TV, wanting them back, knowing what he did, knowing where they were. It's like, what was this guy thinking?
Did you happen to catch this on the news, like when it came out?
No, I didn't. I saw it when you sent it to me. That's when I, first time saw it.
So you're kind of new to the Watts Island, as they like to call it.
Yeah, I seen a couple. I seen like his jail interview after he got sentenced and stuff when they went up. I think he's in Wisconsin or wherever the hell he's at.
Yep, he is in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I saw that interview that Tammy and the FBI agent did, but
yeah, I remember seeing this come on the news, and I remember turning the channel because I was like, I already knew he did it, like before he even like got done talking. And
yeah,
I want to say like a couple years before that, there was another similar thing that had happened, and I just didn't like hearing about that kind of stuff in the news. I didn't want to know about it. I didn't actually start looking into it more in detail until I started doing YouTube, and I just accidentally, it came up one time, and it's just one of the worst stories I had ever heard. Just the kids alone is just makes me nauseous sometimes to think
yeah.
about.
I agree with Jennifer also. She says he was laughing. I think that was more like a nervous, kind of laugh, like like that he has a camera in his face, so he had no other choice but to, laugh and like yeah, he was just off the whole time. And Lauren,
Yeah.
yeah, it did happen so fast. It took like 3 months, like you said. Those type of cases usually go for years and years, discovery, motions and all that. But this case was like super fast.
Yeah. Let me see if I could find that. I think I have the the video of Chris on the porch. Maybe I'll just play some more of this and look for that.
Gabe met at my house yesterday for several hours to talk through the comments that we wanted to make. And we all recognized that in order for the court to impose a just sentence, a fair sentence under the circumstances, that he had to know as much information as we could give him in a respectful fashion. Like I said, he had never read most of that. He had seen an affidavit which had some of the very preliminary information that Detective Baumover put on paper. But I felt like it was important for the judge to understand the horror that was involved in this case. Even though in the end of the sentence, for the defendant, it's not going to matter if he gets 1 consecutive, 2 consecutive, 3 consecutive life sentences. It doesn't matter in the end what number is attached to the end of those. It certainly matters to the Rusick family. It certainly matters to law enforcement and to my office. And I hope it matters to the public. When we're saying, you know what, there is a sentence that was imposed today that is reflective of the actions he took as to each and every one of his victims. Yeah, go ahead.
If I'm remembering correctly, you all searched the location where the bodies were found before Mr. Watts had admitted to you all.
This is
How
also
did you determine
another
the
good
location
question.
of the bodies?
GPS.
Well, like, how did you know where to look?
On his work truck, he had a
I wish she would ask, how did you know to look in the oil tanks?
Mhm.
That's what I really wish she would have asked.
GPS device that showed the path of travel that he took when he left his home that morning. It showed at various increments the time that it would have taken him to get to various spots. So the CBI, FBI, Frederick Police knew where he had gone immediately after leaving his home that morning, which caused some of the initial searches with drones and foot searches. Only after he gave us that information did they have a more specific place to look.
Did he appear to text his coworker that he could take the morning shift before or after he murdered his family?
There were text messages on Sunday afternoon, a text message, I should say, between he and a coworker talking about the work schedule. The investigation that law enforcement conducted indicated that wasn't necessarily out of the ordinary, but in conjunction with everything else we know, became an important fact for us in his efforts to have time to dispose of the bodies in the manner in which he did. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious if during your investigation, if you guys found any evidence, anything suggesting that he'd have violent tendencies?
No.
Any mental problems or even low intelligence?
No, none of the above. Yeah, Kevin.
Sounded like from the statement of Mr. and Mrs. Watson, who may have met with you and your officer, did you get to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Share with them.
Mr. Wren met with him.
When the
I couldn't hear what that question was, even when I increased the audio. But everybody on that side of the room, you can barely hear them.
court issued its order recognizing them as victims under the Victim Bill of Rights, our office agreed to meet with them, and I met with them for several hours last night with their attorney that was present in the courtroom today and one of our victim witness assistants. We had what I consider to be a good conversation. It was awkward and tough in some respects for obvious reasons, but I think ultimately they wanted to know the facts that we knew, and they wanted to know what was going to come out today. And they felt like they had been deprived of that information, and so consistent with our obligations under the statute, I provided them with that information. And I think it changed their perspective a little bit on what was going to happen today.
As you know, a week ago they were questioning whether their son actually had done all of these things.
This is interesting. That would be smart if they like post-dated a letter or something to try to like, but that's like scheming. I think you could get in trouble for like messing up an investigation by telling somebody who's a suspect, hey, write this letter. I'll put a stamp on it from like 3 days ago.
Trying to throw them off and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to the way they found that they were in the tanks, I think if I remember correctly, during his interview with the FBI and the CBI, I think Tammy and I don't remember the other FBI agent's name, but
Agent
he
Coder.
told them, yeah, Coder. He told them where they were. I think they put a picture of the, of the site, and he circled the tanks where they were and where Shanann was. And then
But
I
they
think that's when they
found the
went.
bodies already before he
Hmm.
did that. There's a drone footage out there, and the
Yeah.
timestamp is like 2 hours or something before. They already like zoomed into the grave that you can barely see, but there was
Yeah.
like a
The white
a
sheet.
trash bag or something
Yeah, something.
there. And they zoom into that, and then you can kind of see the dirt. But here, let's see, where are we at on this one? 17 minutes. I did find that video of Chris on the porch. I'll go ahead and play that too.
Hmm.
Where is it? There it is. Yeah. What is going on? I can't click the play button.
Response. WATTF. What's going on right now? And right now it's K9 units, the sheriff's department. Everybody's like they're doing their best right now to figure out like if they can get a scent, see where they went. If they went on foot, they went in a car, or they went somewhere. And right now it's just like they've been on point. They're going through the house trying to get a scent, and hopefully they can pick something up to where it's going to lead to something. What happened?
It's going to lead to Chris Watts.
2 a.m. and I left around 5:15. She was still here, and like about 12:10 in that afternoon, her friend Nichol showed up at the door. Like I had texted Shanann a few times that day, called her, say, but she never got back to me. But she wasn't getting back to any of her people as well, and that's what really concerned a lot of people. Is like she's not getting back to her. Like she doesn't get back to me, that's fine. Like she gets busy during the day. But she didn't get back to her people, which was very concerning. And Nichol called me when she was at the door, and that's when I came home. And then walked in the house, and nothing was vanished. Nothing was here. I mean, she wasn't here. The kids weren't here. Nope, nobody was here. Shanann, SHANANN, Bella and Celeste. CELESTE. 4, Bella's 4, Celeste is 3. And so, how many times did you try calling her? I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times just to say, what's going on. Like after I called her, I texted her once. It's like maybe she was just busy.
That that's just like when he says Celeste's name, I can almost hear him choking up a little bit because he remembered what he did to her. Like, but the eye contact that he's making with the whoever, that's crazy. Like I always try to make eye contact with people when I'm talking to them, but like my eyes are always like, I get nervous and I'm just looking around. Like, he is like deadlocked. But
she just got back, like everybody's probably calling her from her trip. She just got back from Arizona, and I figured that she was busy. But when her friend showed up, that's what it was like. It registered like, all right, this isn't right. I mean, right now I don't even want to just like throw anything out there. Like
it looks like he's gonna throw up.
That she's safe and with the kids, but I mean, could she just taken off? I don't know. But if somebody has her and they're not safe, like I want them back now. Like that's what's in my head. Like if they're safe right now, they're gonna come back. But if they're not safe right now, that's the not knowing part. Like if they're not safe, last night I had every light in the house on.
This I think is a line from a country music song. Every light in the house is on. Have you heard that song?
No, I haven't.
It's what's his name? Trace Akins, something like that. Like who says that? Like I had every light in the house on, but it sounds good. but it's also a country music song. But this time as I'm watching this, I actually think I could hear his voice kind of cracking a few times where he looks like he might actually lose it.
Yeah.
But his composure is like, it's just crazy that he can just sit there and lie so much. Lauren says, I believe him when he says he wants them back because he's regretting it, because he knows he's going down. I don't know, like, we hear about people murdering each other, and when it's like a hot-blooded thing, it's like more easy for us to digest than something so cold-blooded to kill a kid. And he didn't just like go like do them all at the same time. He had to take time to walk from this place to that place and do it, and then take a few seconds and do it again. It's insanity. It is terrible. And he's sitting here like this. I just want them back. I don't know where they are. God. I just can't imagine what I would be doing if that like was something that really had happened. Like if my family was really missing, I would be upset, man. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah, and then the things he was saying, knowing that they're not coming back, like what happened to them, and you still stand there, saying you want them back, but they're not coming back.
I think he should have been an actor. He
Yeah.
he could have done okay, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping that I would just get ran over by the kids running in the door, just like barrel rushing me, but it didn't happen. And it was just a traumatic night trying to be here.
Ugh. Yeah, that.
My kids in my life. I mean, those smiles last
See,
my life.
this looks fake.
I mean, last night,
Yeah.
When they usually eat dinner, it was just like I miss them. Like, I mean, I miss telling them, hey, you got to eat that, or you're not gonna get your dessert. And just like you're not gonna get your snack after. I miss that. Like I miss them. Cuddle up on their couches. They have like a Minnie Mouse couch and a Sophia couch that they cuddle up on and watch, Bo Guppy.
I think it's too soon for him to miss that, I think he knows he's saying it because he knows he's going to miss that. But I think it's way too soon for him to be like, oh, I missed that already.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that, I mean, it's weird. I've listened to this so many times, and like some of this stuff I just never thought about. But that just doesn't make sense. They've been gone for what, 2 or 3 days? 2 days at this point, whenever you do this interview.
Yeah.
Like I missed that I can't tell them that they got to eat their food. I mean, I always hated saying that to my kids. I don't know about you. Eat your food. Hurry up. We got to go.
Yeah.
Like those are the things you don't miss saying that stuff. But Vittoria, I agree. I think he is a heartless monster.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
Last night. I needed that. I needed that last night, and for nobody to be here last night and to go into their rooms and know that I wasn't going to turn the rain machines on. I know that I wasn't going to turn the monitor on. No, I wasn't going to get to bed tonight.
Yeah, I think he did this that night. He was at the house by himself.
I couldn't do it. I want everybody to just come home. Right, wherever they're at, come home. What I want.
Georgianne, what theories do you have?
I agree with Mirabelle. The only thing is he's missing the emotions.
Hold on, I can't. Let me.
You're supposed to get home like 11.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying about what Mirabelle's saying, that he's saying what a normal person would say, but he's missing all the emotions that would come with it. You're missing your 2 daughters, your wife is missing, your pregnant wife at that. So his emotions were not there, and he's there with his hands crossed. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think Dr. Oz points out that
Mhm.
that he does and the rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff, yeah, I don't know. Some people do that anyway when they're talking. If you just get nervous talking, like you could make that same kind of body language
Mhm.
and not be a killer lying to the news. But
Mhm.
I don't think he had, like, when he started describing walking through the house, and knowing that he wasn't going to need to turn on their stuff like that. I believe he did that and he felt that and he probably regretted it, but not for the reasons a normal person would. Um, when my ex went to Arizona for after she lost her job here in Alaska, she went to Arizona with my kids, and she was planning a month-long road trip with her parents. Like when my kids left, all their stuff was gone, and I started like finding like the missing sock that they never had. Like
Mhm.
that was emotional, you know. I mean, so I can kind of imagine what it would be like to walk to the house and feel, that those emotions. But he's got everything blocked up, like
Yeah.
locked down. Hey, Maggie May. Constant Angel says, when I see him, all I can think about is how hot he is because he lost like 100 pounds. That, I think that's why this case is still being talked about every day. Unfortunately, the people involved are attractive people and these are middle class people. So, this is the life everybody wants, more or less, a nice house, a nice family, beautiful people, all that stuff. And then this guy who looks normal is a monster.
Yeah.
And I don't think it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't compute. And that's people just are drawn to the things that they don't understand and they want to understand it. And I think that's why we're still talking about this case. And it's been what, 7, 8 years now?
Yeah. It's been a couple years now.
Well, anyway, I'm going to get back to this thing. Let me rewind it just a bit because there is some good questions in here, and I don't think people talk about this stuff that much.
Information, and I think it changed their perspective a little bit on what was going to happen today.
As you know, a week ago they were questioning whether their son actually had done all of these things. Do you feel like this sort of place?
I do. I think in the middle of that conversation that they came to a realization about the extent of the evidence that we had and why we were making the decisions we made, why we charged them with the things that we charged him with, why we were so convinced that he committed these crimes and that it didn't happen the way that Chris Watts had initially told the police. And so I can't speak for them per se, but my impression from our conversation was that, and I think it's consistent with what they said in court today, is that they're in a little bit different place emotionally as to what they feel their son did, and they're trying to get their head around that, which has been difficult and understandably so.
Yes, please.
Watts originally gave a narrative that's in the arrest affidavit. Did he ever give a different story after that?
No. The story that you all have had from the affidavit in which he...
Oh, sorry, guys. I got to pause this for a sec. So, yeah, the girls, I think Celeste had blonde hair and the other one was light brown. But I think the reason why he said that he saw the blonde hair in the pictures is because he's imagining his own daughter. And he shows a picture of her and her blonde hair. I don't know why the brain does that, but, we just have, like, anytime we hear something, and I don't know, we just incorporate it into our own lives and we see things a little bit different. I think he mentioned the blonde hair because his daughter had blonde hair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maggie. I really appreciate it.
Falsely claimed that Shanann had responsibility for the death of the 2 girls was the only statement that he gave until his pleas of guilty in the courtroom.
And then was a PSI ever done or any psychological evaluation?
No. Well, there was no PSI done. There was no reports done between the time of his guilty plea and today's sentencing hearing. Yes?
The judge mentioned that this is one of the most vicious crimes he's ever encountered. I was wondering, how do you characterize this crime in the course of your career?
Exactly the same. Absolutely horrifying. All of us standing up here, I think, have dealt with a number of serious crimes, but when you take a look at this one and you take a look at the death of those children, and like I said this morning, the death of Shanann, none of these things had to happen. And the manner in which they were disposed of showed a complete and utter disregard for any kind of human decency at all. Yes, sure.
This started out as a missing persons case. At what point did Chris Watts become a suspect?
Very, very early on. Many of the things that he was saying just weren't quite adding up. The Frederick Police Department, the CBI, the FBI did an amazing job from the very outset to begin to focus on him, and rightly so. I think that you saw in a matter of 3 days a gruesome triple homicide, including a pregnant woman, solved, is a testament to the efforts of the men and women who participated in this investigation. I think it was very clear from the outset that he was responsible for this and frankly was pulling the wool over the eyes of the media, to the extent that anybody in the media believed him, let's put it that way. Yeah. Well, everything from the fact that she was, they were still in bed sleeping when he left the home in the early morning hours to go to work, yet her vehicle was still there, her car keys were still there, her wallet, her purse, her cell phone, which she never went anywhere without, were all still inside the home. The home, when law enforcement arrived, was locked up tight from the inside. The only way that the law enforcement could get in was getting Mr. Watts there with a garage door opener to let law enforcement in. There was no way anyone was going to get into that house as a stranger, do something to that family, and get back out and leave the house locked up in that manner. I think that was probably the most compelling thing that struck law enforcement almost immediately. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
He also made some phone calls early the morning of the 13th, first to the children's school and then to a realtor, which were very odd and inconsistent with the rest of his conduct that day and what he was telling the media and police.
There is, and I know that that's going to be still the subject of some probate proceedings. You know, off the top of my head, I can't remember. I apologize. I don't remember the answer to that question. Kevin.
You talk about restitution. Is there any hope that there's going to be restitution in this case? Significant restitution?
There will be significant restitution because, amongst other things, the burial expenses for Shanann, the girls, and Nico obviously will be covered under that statute. We recognize that when someone goes to prison for the rest of their life, their earning potential drops off dramatically, but a portion of any earnings that he has in the Department of Corrections will be used to help pay back that restitution to the Victims' Compensation Fund.
Would you have preferred the death penalty in this case? And if so, why did you not?
Christopher Watts certainly deserved the death penalty. We thought long and hard about it. We had a lot of discussions within our office, and what compelled me to accept the defense's offer was meeting with those folks in North Carolina. When Steve and I sat in their kitchen and we explained to their family the state of the death penalty in Colorado, the possible future of the death penalty as we knew an election was coming up, and the likelihood that an execution would occur anytime within any of our lifetimes, not being a high probability. And when I brought up the offer that had been extended to us by the defense, and when Sandy leaned across the table and looked at me very sternly and said, "And why haven't you done that yet?" that helped solidify in my mind that this family needed some closure, and we were able to get that for them this morning. Yeah, go ahead.
A quick question for you. There's the one camera on the family's door. Is there any other cameras within the house that would have shown anything?
No, there was they had Shanann had a doorbell camera on her doorbell. That's the one that showed her arriving back home from the airport in the early morning hours, but there were no other cameras inside the house. There was the baby monitor that has been a lot of discussion has been had about. It did not have recording capabilities.
How instrumental was Nichol Atkinson's involvement?
The one that's right behind you?
Do you think that maybe Chris was caught in the act because Nichol acted as quickly as she did?
I think she was absolutely instrumental. The fact that she made phone calls to the Frederick Police Department within several hours of this act and this.
See, he's talking about Nichol Atkinson right now, and he's saying exactly what I've been saying. She was the reason why Chris Watts got caught. She called the police right away. Like her friend wasn't even gone like a half a day yet before she started like raising the alarm. I mean, I don't know about you, Esteban, but if like one of my friends disappeared, I would probably take 2 or 3 days before I started to get worried.
Yeah,
Maybe a couple
that's
weeks
for
before I
sure.
actually did anything, you know?
Yeah. I wonder also if he knew she had an appointment that day. I wonder if he would have, chose a different day. But I don't think he knew that, her appointment was that morning because, I mean, he still did it, right? But it makes me
I
wonder,
don't think
like,
he
if
knew.
he knew, would it happen a different day?
Well, see, he also called the school that his children were at and said that they weren't going to be in ever again.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a big red flag. I mean, obviously, him and Shanann had been fighting over money for a long time, and
Yeah.
Shanann really wanted to pay for that school. Chris Watts didn't want to, and then once he'd murdered them, he like calls up the school and finally says, "Hey, we're not bringing the kids there anymore.
Yeah.
Bye." But hey, Alicia, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys for all like clicking the like button and being here. Esteban, you're not getting tired yet, are you?
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, because we got a ways to go unless you need to go and
Yeah,
and stuff.
no, I'll let you know if I need to go, but I'm good right now.
Yeah, I think I did overkill on all the stuff that I had set for today. I didn't realize, this little clip is only like 20 or 30 minutes long. And
Yeah.
takes a while to get through it. But there's some really important things being said here, and if you ever needed to know where this stuff comes from, this is like straight from the horse's mouth here. This isn't rumors or speculation. I've heard people say, well, the Ruseks didn't want the death penalty. Well, I've never heard them say that, but I've heard him say that they didn't want to. He had direct contact with them. I don't know why people haven't watched this. Like I hadn't seen this all the way through before.
Disappearance, I think, only benefited law enforcement. Being able to have law enforcement respond to that house before the defendant came back and was able to do any other cleanup or getting rid of evidence, I think was crucial to this investigation. And so she's obviously here, and I want to extend our thanks to you for that very timely response, and thank you for all you've done. Yes?
Carrie H. Ellen. But do you know the orders of the death?
No, like I talked about earlier, we just weren't able to ascertain time of death as to any of these individuals. So to say that Shanann was deceased before the girls or vice versa would simply be speculation. Yeah.
You mentioned in court the emotionless, what you call the emotionless interviews that Chris Watts gave to the media. What do you make of those now, knowing what we know?
Bald-faced lies. He stood up there and he tried to deflect attention away from his own responsibility. He lied to the public. He stood there and said he hopes his children and his wife were safe for probably the better part of 2 days, knowing full well exactly where they were, how they had passed away, and how they had gotten to where they were. Yeah.
It may be a better question for the Department of Corrections, but what is a day in the life in prison going to look like for Christopher Watts?
That's probably a better question for DOC. I know that they are an exceedingly professional organization who will see to his safety, will place him in a prison that they feel is most appropriate for him. Beyond that, I couldn't comment on that. Yeah.
You mentioned that
That's fun. What do you think his life's like in prison?
I think he's I want to say in solitary, solitary confinement. He goes out, supervised. I don't think he's left alone with other inmates. I think he's having a very long days in there. Well deserved long days.
Have you heard about the underwear that ended up in some other guy's cell that belonged to Chris Watts?
No.
They found some lube also. I don't know if he's in solitary confinement, he's getting out somehow.
Apparently they found that.
Yeah, well, I guess his underwear's got his name in it or something, and they found the contraband in Dylan Tallman's cell. That's the guy who wrote the book that mentions the WhatsApp thing that Chris Watts says they were talking on WhatsApp.
I agree with Olga. He is too comfortable for sure.
Yeah, I don't know why they get so much luxury. I mean, it's not luxury compared to what you think of as like, in regular life, but I mean, they get air conditioning and they get like, clean clothes and regular food. They get to have fan mail, they get to have people visit them and, all of that. I think Chris Watts has got another new girlfriend. Like,
yeah, it's crazy how some people come
why
out.
are they allowed these things, man? They're supposed to be punished for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
and they get a life. They're living. They've murdered people. Maria Marino says, I feel like he's in a country club.
Yep.
He eats, works out, corresponds with all kinds of women, and he's happy. He's content. Yeah, I agree too.
Yeah.
Lauren says, I agree, prison is not a punishment anymore. I still think it's a punishment, but it's not like, when I think of prison, I think of like, what was that book? The Count of Monte Cristo. The guy's like chained to the wall of a cave. He's getting water that's dripping down from the rocks. That's how he's like sustains himself. And like once a week, he gets some food, That's what prison should be like. Maybe people would stop committing crimes and saying, oh, I'm just going to go back inside and hang out with my jail buddies. I mean, it's crazy that they get to have a life in prison like that.
Yeah, they do.
Toxicology reports for Shanann Watts. Did you test Christopher Watts at all for drugs and alcohol the night of the murder?
We did not. When he was contacted by law enforcement, and Detective Baumover was in contact with him within a matter of an hour of the first phone call by Ms. Atkinson, there was absolutely no indication that he was under the influence of any drugs and or alcohol that would have justified any kind of testing.
I know you don't know why exactly, but can you talk about what you think the motive was, or the reason for a seemingly normal father to do something so horrific?
Like I said this morning, I think that based upon his Google searches, his cell phone searches, some of the things that he was doing while Shanann and the girls were in North Carolina, I think it became pretty obvious that he found a new love interest. And for whatever reason in his mind, divorce wasn't an option. I can't speak as to why anyone would take the steps that he did, but during the course of our investigation, other than the normal stressors of financial stress that I think most of us have, the occasional marital stress, we couldn't find anything else that was a significant enough motive to annihilate your family in the manner that he did. Yeah.
In the courtroom you talked about against your...
Yeah, I also agree with Alicia about the pictures. It really is messed up. Like it's like proof, like, I don't know, they call them trophies when you're talking about serial killers, but he killed 3 people and he keeps their picture where he can see them every day. I don't think he should be allowed that either. I don't know why. I guess because he was married to Shanann, and he was the father of the kids, they allow it, but it doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason why they allowed it also, because they were like married and was his family. But yeah, I don't think he should be allowed to have them.
So do you
Not
think
after
like
what he did.
in his mind, like, do you think like that day when he snapped and killed everybody, like, is that like blocked out of his mind? He's just got like this like section of memory that's just
I mean,
gone.
I'm pretty sure he tries to block it out, but I don't see how you could do that. Like,
Oh,
you replay it in your head, what you did to your daughters, your wife. I don't think he could just block it out.
I don't think
I
so
think
either.
yeah, it's
When
that's
he
pretty
was
hard.
in, I think it was the February 2019 interview, and he talks about
Mhm.
Bella saying "Daddy, no,"
Yeah, yeah,
like that haunts me, and I didn't say it to anyone. Like
yeah.
I think about that sometimes, and it's like nauseating to think about it. Like
Hmm.
"Daddy, no," like
Yeah.
I've been pretty mad at my kids, and I've chased them around the house like ha ha, and they run and they're laughing. There's
Hmm.
never any real possibility of me doing anything to really hurt them.
No.
Um, I don't know. I mean, it just makes no sense. I can imagine like if my kids said that to me, like I would just be like,
Yeah, bro.
I've got to
Yeah.
stop. I'm sorry. Like that would just kill me.
Hmm.
Point that partial motive, that desire to start a new
Mhm.
fresh start. Can you describe some of the evidence that you found, some of those video searches you were mentioning specifically?
There was everything from photographs of he and his girlfriend at the Great Sand Dunes in southern Colorado during the time that Shanann was in North Carolina. We knew that they had gone to other museums together. They had gone to bars and restaurants together. Like I said this morning, he had done searches dealing with secluded vacation spots in Aspen that he was planning on apparently taking her to. He was researching jewelry. He was doing all of that kind of research that you would think that somebody in a brand new relationship would be doing. But he was still married with 2 daughters and a son on the way. Yes, sir.
Can you speak at all to the state of the house? I understand that some of the beds were stripped of their sheets. but
Steve, I'll let you take this one.
Otherwise, is it in disarray?
I'll let Steve take this one.
It was not generally in disarray. There was no obvious signs of a struggle like we see in a lot of houses where something traumatic occurs. The master bedroom bed did not have sheets on it. Those sheets had been taken off and placed, part of them had been placed in the trash can, and then apparently Shanann had been wrapped in one of those sheets, or that sheet had gone with her out to the oil tank and was found by the drone about the same time that he was being interviewed by the FBI and CBI. And that was a key piece of evidence in us connecting the missing persons to him, was the fact that the sheet from the bed was found out at the oil tank, and that was prior to him confessing that he had taken the bodies there.
So yeah, I think that's interesting because this is the first time I've heard them actually address how they knew where the bodies were before he confessed. And if you listen to this story, it doesn't sound like anybody told them anything. They just figured it out. I don't think he says specifically how they knew that the kids were in the oil tanks.
Yeah.
But there was something on the ground out there when they flew a drone over, and you see that, and you kind of have to zoom in and see what else is there.
Discuss his reaction when confronted with that evidence.
Go ahead. You want to take that one too?
Yeah, we were getting that information from the drone search at the same time that he's starting to give us some more information about the nature of his relationship with Shanann and the problems that they had been having. We were also getting, or CBI and the FBI were also getting information confirming this other relationship, the girlfriend, about the same time. So all of that was coming together while they were talking to him. That information was being communicated to him, or to the investigators, and they started confronting him with that. And that's ultimately when he changed direction with his story dramatically, and asked to speak to his father briefly, and then told the interviewers that at that point he was willing to tell them what happened. And ultimately that is when things changed and he admitted to dumping the bodies in the oil tanks.
Yes, sir. With what he has admitted in the brief written statement that was read to the court this morning, do you have any sense of how legitimate the remorse Mr. Watts has expressed is?
You and I must have seen something different, because I didn't see any remorse on his face at all in the courtroom. I saw somebody who I believe felt truly sorry for himself for the circumstances that he now found himself in. I don't believe that there was any remorse displayed at any point in time for Shanann, Bella, Nico, or Celeste. No. Yeah.
What do you make of the discrepancy between the story he told about strangling or seeing Shanann strangle the children versus the fact that he actually smothered them? What do you make of that? It seems like a small discrepancy, but what...
Oh no, that's a very large discrepancy. That is another lie. And I keep emphasizing and using that word. We can't in the courtroom. I can here. I can tell you in no uncertain terms, he lied to investigators, he lied to the media, he lied to the public. The fantastic work that was done by the medical examiner in this case, by the coroner's office, in giving us the information in a very responsible, medically accurate way to be able to say, no, those girls were not strangled. And when he sat there and in that interview demonstrated what he saw her doing, and we know that that's not what happened, it turned into a very large discrepancy in our mind. Yes.
Do we know what Shanann knew about the affair?
We knew that, she knew that there was a lot of suspicious behavior. We knew that she was getting alerts on her phone of credit cards being used at a restaurant in North Denver at a time that she was in North Carolina for amounts of money that one person couldn't probably consume reasonably. We know that she confronted him about that numerous times. We know that he was never completely forthcoming with her, except we don't know exactly what was shared between the two of them in those early morning hours after she got back from Arizona. Yes, sir.
Any reason to believe that the pregnancy had anything to do with the actions taken?
I can't say that it didn't have anything to do with it. We knew that Shanann was very excited about Nico and the upcoming birth. We also know that the reaction of the defendant when he found out was something less than what you would expect a normal, reasonable father to display when he finds out that he's about to have a son. Yes. No. Beyond his hand, I don't know if there was anything in his hand. What I can tell you is that during the course of the...
Could you hear what she said in that question? Because I couldn't. Does anybody have a transcript of this and can tell me? Because I tried to get that one too. I couldn't hear it at all.
Autopsies, there was no fibers or anything like that found in their airways to indicate pillow or blanket or anything like that, so I don't know.
You were the medical examiner to what you saw in the autopsy that indicated his mother.
I'll let Mr. Blush.
You would think there would be physical signs.
There are some physical signs. We're going to distribute the autopsy reports to you. In the interest of balance with the family present, may I suggest that you look at that and you will see what evidence the forensic pathologist could see.
Over the last 100 days, how would you describe personally this case, the toll it's taken on your team, and to where we are today?
I don't know if I accurately can. Steve and I and Patrick have had a lot of conversations along with Dave and everybody else who's worked on this case about how exceedingly difficult it has been. The thing I will tell you that gets us up and gets us moving every day is that family sitting right over there. They have been phenomenal to work with under the most extreme circumstances you can imagine. And when we get to work in the morning and Sandy has called and left us a voice message asking for us to call her, it kind of gets your blood flowing and really wanting to do the best you possibly can for them. There's been a lot of sleepless nights. There's been time away from families. Even when we are home, sometimes we're not exactly there. When we're having to look at some of the most gruesome things you can imagine. But it's been tough, but it's also why we do the job. And even though you didn't ask, I'm going to take an opportunity to say it. Thank you to Frank and Sandy and Frankie for all that you have participated in, all that you have been subjected to. It has been an honor learning a little bit about your family.
You know, I think it's really good that he talks about them here, that they're actually here, but he mentions they didn't want to answer any questions, and they don't need to. But I don't know how they could have, said, "Hey, take the death penalty off." Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, I'd be like, "How soon can we do it?" You know.
Yeah.
I think
Give
a
me a
lot of people
date.
feel that way. It's just, but I guess when it comes down to it, maybe it feels different whenever you're the one that makes the choice,
Yeah.
or has a say in it. It's easy to react and say, "Oh, I want the death penalty," but whenever somebody's being put to death because of your statement, I don't know. I don't know that I could do it. Realistically, I don't know that I could.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, I think we
think
could all sit here and say, yeah, I would say yes, but who knows when you're in that situation.
Yeah, I think I always think of it like, if like this was like a mob and we're all about to hang some guy, like we're in the Wild West, everybody's like, yeah, do it until like somebody says, well, you got to be the one to put the noose
Yeah.
around the guy's neck. And
Yeah, I
then
agree
nobody
with
wants to do it.
LK. Yeah.
What
LK has a
LK
good
say?
point.
This
Yeah.
LK says they didn't want to have blood on their hands. It's their Christian values. I think so
Yes.
too. I mean, I know they've got to be more angry than anybody. And it just says a lot about their personality that they could, say, hey, I don't want to put the death
Yeah.
penalty in there. Unless you think about it like, I mean, it just came to my mind. Well, I guess if somebody's suffering in prison for like 60, 70 years, that's better than, a quick death.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they're a little, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. And I really feel sorry for anybody that ever has to be put in a situation like this, where it's something that they have actually got to consider.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Anything else in the autopsy that put to light anything with respect to the fact that children were smothered, not strangled,
I think you hit the most important points in the autopsy as we saw them from a prosecution standpoint. I talked about the injury to Bella that was indicative of being pushed down into those oil tanks, but he had told us that. Those things that I highlighted in court and that we've talked a little bit about here today were the most important factors in our determination that he had in fact committed what we charged him with. Yeah.
This might be another question better for DOC, but do you know where he'll be filmed?
No. We know that he will head to the Denver Regional Diagnostic Center, obviously in Denver. They will do some evaluations of him, but beyond that, it will be up to DOC as to whether or not he will be housed at a facility here in Colorado or if he'll be moved out of state. That's completely their determination. Other question? Yes? Sure. There is always the opportunity through the Victims Compensation Program for financial assistance.
Whoa. Uh-oh. I think it just died again. Hold on. Did the video just disappear?
Yes. I don't see it anymore.
I don't know what's going on with StreamYard, but maybe I can get it to come back. Yeah. $37. Nope, it's not going to, but I could bring it back. Well, we're at 37 minutes, so at least this time I saw the timestamp.
2018, Frederick, Colorado.
Hold on.
A man whose name will not come out of my mouth stood before the television cameras, feigned
I don't know where it's
concern,
playing at.
and lied to the public, claiming he needed the information about the whereabouts of his missing wife and 2 young daughters. But something was off. And within just a
We're having
matter of
some
a couple of
technical problems,
days,
guys.
we learned that this was a calculated charade by a monster who had annihilated his family, murdered his wife, his 4-year-old daughter, and his 3-year-old daughter.
Well, yep. I was wondering if that was ever going to happen again. It used to do this all the time. I think I'm going to have to stop using Edge. I've heard that it doesn't work as well as like Chrome or something, but I just don't like using Google Chrome. Let me get the file back.
2018, Frederick, Colorado.
I think we'll save the courtroom thing for next time.
Glad you used the word rumor, because I think that's the vast majority of what we saw on social media was just that, false rumor.
Wind it a little bit more.
I'm glad you used the word rumor, because I think that's the vast majority of what we saw on social media was just that, false rumor. I'm not aware of any other confirmed relationships that the investigation uncovered which would offer any insight into why this occurred, other than the girlfriend that I talked about this morning.
He's talking about Nichol Kessinger.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Were any social media rumors really disruptive to your process?
All of them are disruptive to our process. And I don't say that crassly. When we are out, when Dave...
So what he's about to talk to now, I never really thought about it this way, but anybody who's going to be questioned by the police, if they've already checked, stuff on the news, it might change what they remember, and that could really affect, an investigation. He's going to explain it here in just a sec. I'll just go ahead and play it.
Dave and his team are out conducting interviews of witnesses, and an individual's memory might be tainted by something inaccurate that they read on a social media site. That causes us to think, okay, how much is true of what somebody's saying? What did they see? What did they hear? Or what are they surmising or guessing because of something that they read on social media? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can generally tell you that the investigation included interviews of all of Shanann's co-workers, all of her close friends, relatives, co-workers of the defendant, relationships of the defendant, neighbors. Who am I missing? Generally, I think those are the categories. Yeah, family members of both Shanann and the defendant. A long, long list of interviews. I could ask Dave to go through and recite them all, but he might miss some. Any other questions? Yes?
Is it possible that the Russo family is something they want to say about that?
I have asked them on the way down. They did not want to make a statement today, and I hope you understand the statements that they made in court, I think, were probably about as difficult as they could possibly imagine. So I appreciate you asking. They wanted to be here. They just didn't want to make a statement. Yes? It will be an ongoing amount. Within 91 days, we will file a motion with the court asking.
I think they just asked about restitution to the victims' families.
For any restitution or any cost that we can recover in restitution as of that 91 days will be asked for and ordered, I presume. There will be ongoing costs if there are any ongoing counseling or therapy costs, and we will ask the court to keep that, the possibility of future restitution open as well. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
And that's basically the entire... There was a couple parts that I cut out, like right before he says, any other questions? Somebody asked how long you're going to be answering questions. I think it was like a key response. Like he says, somebody, hey, whenever the time gets to like such and such, ask this question so I know when to stop. And somebody asked him how long he's going to be answering questions for. And he says, well, as soon as I stop answering questions, then I won't be answering questions anymore. I cut that part out. But so what do you think about all of this stuff? Do you think they investigated Nichol Kessinger enough?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he basically says in this whole thing that, yeah, we knew about her, but no, we didn't do anything about it. And
yeah,
I
and
can
it's
see.
crazy in these type of cases. You know, they say you investigate everyone around. You know, the people, but they I think they dropped the ball on Nicole because she was pretty close to this and they didn't do anything.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a reason that they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So she must have said something.
Yeah.
She must have. It's the only thing that like makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maria Marino says no. NK is guilty as sin. She's definitely caught in a bunch of lies
Yeah.
while she's talking to investigators. And you know, I've heard at least 2 or 3 comments so far today alone about how she could remember all these tiny details about one thing, but you know, this almost 2-hour conversation, she has no idea what they talked about. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's like, I mean, I don't know if I can remember every detail of every phone call I've ever had, but I can probably tell you generally what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, the other day I was talking to my kids and I was like, what are you guys doing today? And they're like, nothing, but that's what we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember that. And I think she would remember that too. Like, what were you
Yeah.
guys talking about? Oh, we were just talking about
Yeah.
what we did today and nobody did anything, but she doesn't remember anything at all. It's just creepy. But
Yeah.
DA Rourke says that it was really suspicious that she had deleted everything on her phone.
Yeah, she deleted so much stuff.
Kevin, what is his last name? The other detective says it in the interview room. Well, you know, it is very suspicious that everything's deleted on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on to say, well, but I can understand why you removed everything. But I don't know. I think she was still a suspect until she must have told them something. And then they
Yeah.
decided that whatever whatever involvement she had wasn't enough to warrant jail time or something. And they got that and whatever information they got from her and then
Yeah.
used it.
I agree with Olga. She says she needed Tammy. She for sure needed Tammy. Tammy would have made some work of her.
You know, I did see Tammy come into the room one time when she's talking to, what's his last name? Kevin Kovac or something like that. I can't remember his last name, but he's talking to Nichol Kessinger and Tammy walks in and she comes in and she has this like empathy in her voice. Oh, I'm so sorry you're going through this. And then she walks out. But I don't know if it was real empathy, like she'd already like figured out what was going on and, you know, because she did have like a victim's advocate sitting next to her in that particular one. But LK says, let's redo the lie detector on Chris Watts. See, I think he was lying about everything, so it really wouldn't have mattered of whether or not he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anything that they asked him may have said that, hey, he's lying, but they made him believe that everything that he said that was a lie showed up and they know. And they used that against him. They used that to get him to confess. The lie detectors they're not usually admissible in court. You know, they're about 50-50 on accurate or not. I mean, if you think about what they're reading, it's just like your heart rate and your, you know, that kind of stuff. If you think about the last time you were ever like questioned by somebody that you care about, you know, like, what'd you do? Did you really do it? You know, if you think about what you said and how you said it, you could kind of see how, even if you're telling the truth, your body might still read it as you know, you feel guilty, so it comes out as you're guilty. I don't know. But I don't know why they didn't investigate her very much. I've went back and forth on whether or not she's involved, and I think whenever I saw the fake footage of her in the driveway, that's when I started believing that maybe she wasn't actually guilty. Because like if I started realizing all the stuff that I thought I knew, like, was like third party information, you know, probably information somebody got from somebody else. And, you know, it's just like somebody faked a ghost image on an image of Chris Watts walking down the driveway. It's like a zoomed in like camera from the neighbor, you know, and you could see him walking to his truck, and then somebody walks right behind him, and the shoes are white instead of dark color. And but if you actually look at that second image, it's just like a shrunken down version of the first one. It's like the same silhouette, only like 20% smaller. I think it's faked.
You know what I wonder also sometimes is like if Nicole was actually involved in any way, I wonder if Chris will ever, let it be known. You know, after a while, in the beginning, he probably was head over heels for her, trying to protect her. But, you know, after years, I wonder if he'll ever say anything or, admit to anything that if she was involved.
Yeah, I think you know, it's interesting that he was like, "Oh, let's not bother her." You know, she wasn't involved in any way, like right in the beginning. And I think the first day that he went to prison and he realized that she wasn't going to be writing him in jail, that he would have just gave her up, I think.
Turned and said, "Screw this! I'm not coming down alone." But
I don't think she was necessarily involved, not like, you know, in any real way. Maybe he like said something and she didn't report it or something like that. Or maybe she like said something else like, "Hey, well, it's me or them." And then he kills his family, you know, stuff like that. Because he had supposedly been talking to Nichol Kessinger about how he is planning to talk to Shanann and he was going to move out. She was helping him find an apartment, you know, and actually move out. Like her goal was to get him out of the house. And she was like, you know, the mistress, but she was also the homewrecker. She was like, Chris would have found somebody else. I know that, but you know, but she liked him and she wanted him. And so she like just kind of drove the wedge in there as much as she could. To get him to be like, okay, yeah, well, I guess I can, you know, get out of that relationship. I can have somebody who's more supportive of my thoughts than my wife, you know, because she was bossy. She had to do everything. I think Nichol Kessinger is the same type of person. Just in that first like 6 weeks, you know, that puppy dog phase, like everything that other person does is fine. You know, fast forward like 5 years, and then you're like gonna be so annoyed every time you hear like somebody say this one little thing that they thought was cute right now. Like, but I think it was the book that Dylan Tallman wrote that supposedly was he helped Chris Watts actually write because they were next door to each other. But you got to consider who the author is. He's a felon. You know, I think there was at one point I was like, is this guy even a real person? Because I couldn't find any public records of his hearings. What was he arraigned on? You know? I think I finally found it. He was arraigned on things like methamphetamine possession and like falsifying documents and stuff like that. So he's not like a murderer, but you know, you can't trust somebody who's a criminal, even if it's a drug thing. You know, people on drugs steal because they want more drugs. They lie because they want more drugs. But as far as I can tell, the only one that ever mentioned WhatsApp was in that book of his. that is no longer published. You can't buy it anymore. Unless you guys know something else about the WhatsApp. I believe that Chris Watts was it was brought up to him and he denied knowing what WhatsApp was.
I've only used it a couple times, and it was for work, but never again. Not for personal use. So I don't really have much input on the WhatsApp. It's just, I don't know. I rather use regular text.
Yeah, I use Facebook Messenger and I use WhatsApp. I don't use like anything else really. I don't
Yeah.
use like Teams or any of the other chats. And even Facebook, I don't use that much anymore, except to talk to my kids.
Yeah.
So do you guys want to watch the rest of that porch video? We were about halfway through, and we can pick apart how much he was lying. Do any of you guys use WhatsApp? I mean, I use it, and I like it because it's easy to share like pictures and videos. It's real easy. But you know what I've been wondering is why the police didn't like check for those other third-party apps. They found out about the calculator app where he's got pictures of Nichol Kessinger, naked pictures of Nichol Kessinger on his phone. And like while his family was missing, he was like saving his pictures of her in his calculator app. Like he's supposed to be frantically searching for his family. And what does he want more than anything is naked pictures of his girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think that's just
crazy.
insanity. Like, I didn't even know they had those things. Like, you ever had to use a secret calculator app?
No. I'm very basic, simple, as simple as it gets. Technology is complicated for me.
Yeah, I can't seem to find that porch video that I had working a little while ago. Let me see. Nope. Well, I don't know. I think we're just about done here, guys. Let me. Oh, here it is. Let me try to play this for you guys, and then I think I'll let Esteban get back to his stuff. What have you been doing today? Got any like work
Today,
projects?
Sunday, I've just been getting my stuff ready for work. Gotta go get a haircut. Sundays I usually just use to get ready and get my things ready and do laundry, and probably gonna cook something right now for dinner and yeah, part of the day.
You should go see Mo at Majestic Hair Creations. That guy gives good haircuts. Him and his wife have like their own barber shop.
Okay,
really cool.
I usually do my own hair. I've done it for.
Oh man, he'll get like all of everything's like straight and like.
Nah, bro, I can't do lineups. I got a big ass forehead already.
He'll fix it. He'll do your beard too, like.
Yeah.
So here, I'm gonna share that video again.
Yes, Lauren. Sundays are for laundry and getting ready for life.
Well, I guess I can't find the video. When I share my screen, I can't find it, but whenever I see it here, I can find it. That's weird. Here we go.
It was a fun couple hours here. Thanks for having me on, and looking forward for the next talk.
Yeah. What was you were telling me about the Texas 11 or 7?
Oh, the Texas 7. For those of you that know or don't know, look them up. It's these 7 Texas inmates that they planned this whole escape, and it's a good little story. Maybe one day we could talk about it here. Give you time to look it up and look into it. It's pretty interesting.
All right, Esteban. Well, thanks for joining me. I'm glad you finally decided to come hang out. Now, if I could just get Casey to come join us,
I know, right?
Then it would be a
We'll start
party.
getting them.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But
Yeah,
thanks a
yeah.
lot.
You guys look up Texas 7, and hopefully one day we'll make it a topic here and see what we come up. Yeah, Olga. Yes, Texas 7. All right, Rob. Well, thank you for having me. Everybody, have a good rest of your day. I'll be heading out now.
All right.
I
Take
see
it
you, Rob.
easy.
Yep, you too.
Well, guys, I finally found that the rest of that video. I'll just go ahead and play the last couple minutes of it, and then I'll go ahead and exit out here. But I do appreciate you guys all being here. This video just always makes me feel like why, and then he's just lying. It just makes me so angry.
That's why last night was just horrible. I couldn't do it. I want everybody to just come home. Right, wherever they're at, come home.
I can't believe he's saying that.
She came back Sunday, said it's you. Yeah, because her flight got delayed from Arizona because other storms around the nation. So she's supposed to get home 11. She got home at 1:48. She got to bed about 2. What was she on?
Wait.
It was a Thrive direct sales. It was a local event that was down there between a bunch of leaders in the company.
Is that video actually sharing, guys?
I left work early that morning, 5:15, 5:30. So she barely got into bed pretty much.
It doesn't look like it is.
It wasn't like an argument. We had no.
Yeah, it's not working. I don't think the video is working. Let me try one more thing here. Yeah, this.
Chris Watts, WATTS.
There. Now we can watch the. There we go.
I left work early that morning, 5:15, 5:30.
Well, guys,
so
thanks for being here. I really
appreciate it.
Make sure you hit the like button as many times as you can in the next couple minutes. Let YouTube know that this video was interesting.
It wasn't like an argument. We had
do me a favor and go to the actual video and leave comments in there as well.
I just want
that
them
would
back.
be great.
I just want them to come back, and if they're not safe right now, that's what's tearing me apart. Because if they are safe, they're coming back. But if they're not, this has got to stop. Somebody has to come forward.
You spoken to her family, her parents?
Yeah, they've been in constant contact, every hour. Everybody back in North Carolina and the East Coast. From Maine to Florida.
What is her parents saying to you?
They're just if they need to get on a flight, just let them know. Because they feel helpless right now because they're on the opposite side of the country. Colorado is, you can't just drive around and look. It's just you wouldn't really know what you're looking for. That's what the cops pretty much told me. That first day I was I want to get out and drive around. They said, you wouldn't know what to look for.
Last couple questions. What is law enforcement, what have the police or the sheriffs or your neighbors, what's police saying to you?
Right now, what they're doing right now is with the canines in the sense. I think this is the biggest thing. This is the biggest thing they've done so far because yesterday the Frederick Police Department did all the searching of the house and tried to gather whatever information they could. And with the detectives, officers, and sergeants, and today it's, obviously with all the activity that's around, there's a lot going on around here, and I really hope that all of this can lead to something positive.
What did your neighbors, did they see anything? Did your neighbors see anything?
No, we've the police department went door to door asking, like cameras and everything, just like nothing.
And my last question, if you have any though, so feel free to step in. My last question is, if your wife can see this, if she can watch these, what would you like to tell your wife and your kids?
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring her back.
That's it. I can take that mic off you.
Well, guys, that's the end of that video. So once again, thank you all for being here. It was a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. As always, stay kind, be vigilant, and always question the truth. I'll catch you in the next video.